Tess was her old college roommate from Converse. Tess will be meeting her train tomorrow morning. So why didn't she stay with Tess at Christmas when she went down for that interview? His voice had edged up a decibel. Well, I guess she wanted to stay with someone else at Christmas, Mother neutrally suggested. Of course, I had told them after the fact with whom I'd stayed, or rather I had presented an acceptable configuration of the way in which this family I had worked for last summer had offered me hospitality. Not that any configuration of the Nightingales would ever be acceptable to Earl. Well, I guess there's just no accounting for some people's taste, but to move down there to be with that tribe... Menacing pause before the refrain. When her dean said the Charlotte Observer would have taken her. The voice rolled on, but so, I congratulated myself, did the car. Every mile we achieved was 1 mile nearer to my release. We had not veered off the road or had a flat tire, and nobody had backhanded me to start a black eye for my first day of work. Think of it as a scene early in a novel, I told myself. The stepfather picks one last fight with the daughter who has not appreciated him. The mother in the back seat, wedged among her daughter's boxes, knees tucked under her like a college girl, is forgiving of the wild little breezes that mess up her hairdo because they mute his voice. There will be plenty more of it to listen to on their long drive back to the mountains. Whose novel was this going to be? Not the stepfather's. The writer might never grow the empathy for that one. Not the mother's either, though it catches in the daughter's throat to see the youthful way the older woman is clasping her knees, wrapped in her own memories of Chapel Hill when she still expected to get everything she wanted. If it was going to be the daughter's, there would be some choked-back sobs in the mother's embrace at the train station, one last stoic offering of the daughter's mouth for the imposition of the stepfather's kiss, and then they would be gone on the next page. Alone in my luxury cubicle, I relaxed for the first time in months, allowing the train's diesel engine to take over the job of getting me to my destination. Woods pinked with afternoon June light alternated with tobacco fields and tin-roofed drying barns. As we shot through a dreary little hamlet, a character offered herself for my perusal. A girl born and raised in this fly-blown place who had dreams of going somewhere, and one day wakes up on her deathbed, a forgotten old maid who has never left town, and hears this very train hurtle by. She feels the diesel cry in the marrow of her bones, and in her last conscious moment believes she is aboard. She savors all the sweetness of having gotten out, and she expires with a rapturous smile on her face for no one to see but the undertaker. Could such a woman still exist in the late 1950s, even in rural North Carolina? Why not? Maybe I would write this existential pastoral with its O. Henry-ish ending in the evenings when I got home from my newspaper job. It was the sort of thing that might get me published in a literary quarterly, especially one of the southern ones, which abounded in stories about trains passing and nothing much ever happening at home. My plan was to become a crack journalist in the daytime, building my worldly experience and gaining fluency through the practice of writing to meet deadlines. Then in the evening and on weekends, I would slip across the border into fiction, searching for characters interesting and strong enough to live out my keenest questions. My journalism would support me until I became a famous novelist. Perhaps I would become a famous journalist on the side if I could manage both. I took first call for the dining car and sat down to a spotless white tablecloth and a red rosebud in a silver vase. Perfect icons for my new beginning. Like an antidote to my ditched character back in the roomette, a smart, suntanned woman in an army officer's uniform slowly materialized through the haze of my nearsightedness. Her gaze lit on me. She murmured something to the waiter, and the next thing I knew she was asking if she might join me. "Please do." I heard myself switching into my well-brought-up mode, even though I'd been counting on dining alone and savoring my getaway some more. Her brass name tag read Major E.J. Marjack. She introduced herself as Erna Marjack. When I said Emma Gant, she remarked on the similarity of our first names, which would have annoyed me had she not had such a warm smile and beautiful teeth in the bargain, and had she not looked so straightforwardly charmed by the prospect of having dinner with me. By the time she had ordered from the menu, without the usual female shilly-shallying, I knew I envied her self-command, and I resolved to use this opportunity to further my development. She asked where I was headed, and I said I was going to Miami to be a reporter on the Miami Star. "Really? You seem so young. I thought you were a student." "I was until noon today. I just graduated from the university at Chapel Hill." She laughed, exposing the beautiful teeth again. "You aren't wasting any time, are you? We ought to celebrate. May I treat you to some wine, Emma?" "Thank you, that would be nice." Major Marjack signaled the waiter. "What would you like?" "Oh, whatever you're ordering will be fine." Having grown up in beer and bourbon land, I hadn't a clue. "Well, since we're both having red meat, a half bottle of this Côte de Rhone will go down well. If we'd chosen the chicken, I would have suggested the Blue Nun." My first lesson in wines. She told me she'd just completed a very successful recruiting tour and was heading for some R&R with a friend in Pensacola before reporting back to duty at Fort McClellan in Alabama. "What do you do on a recruiting tour?" "I show a film about the opportunities the Army offers to women today, and then I have interviews the rest of the day. I'm very good at assessing character and signing up the best ones, but this time I broke my own record. 37 young women from 15 states will be reporting for duty at Fort McClellan by the end of the month." I might have been number 38, I thought, had I not had my hiring letter from the managing editor of the Miami Star tucked in my purse. But then, of course, I wouldn't have been on this train. Major Marjack's character-assessing gaze gave me a stamp of approval. "You're fortunate, Emma. You started ahead of the game, but for many young women, we offer the only hope of independence." I asked the porter to make up my roomette for sleeping and was in bed before dark, swaying with the train's motion, mellow from Major Marjack's Côte de Rhone. When I was in my pajamas, I raised the shade again so I could get the maximum benefit from the experience, lying straight as a mummy in my little coffin bed of rebirth, hurtling through one town after another where people steeped like old teabags in their humdrum lives, speeding farther away by the minute from earldom and all the other bottlenecks I had narrowly squeezed through. It both gratified and goaded me that I had come across to an observant recruiter as one of those sleek, fortunate ones who started ahead of the game. Wasn't that the image that I had cultivated? Yet when so much lay hidden, I got no credit for my struggle, did I? When Major Marjack had proudly confided, "Weaponry is opening up to women in an unprecedented way," I couldn't help inventorying my own arsenal to date, the weapons best suited to my personality under duress. Guile, subterfuge, goal-oriented politeness, teeth-gritting staying power, and the ability, when necessary, to shut down my heart. Forces had been mobilizing inside me for the past 11 years to do battle with anything or anybody who might try to usurp me for their own purposes again. Usurp had become my adversarial verb of choice ever since I had seized upon it from a History of Tudor England course to trounce my arch-enemy, the Dean of Women, in my daily Tar Heel column. With her latest Victorian edict, Dean Carmody has, quite simply, usurped the rights of every Carolina co-ed. After that column, perfect strangers would call out familiarly as I crossed the campus, "Hey, Emma, anybody been usurping you lately?" I delighted in the powers of the Fourth Estate. My twice-weekly column, Carolina Carousel, carried a mugshot of me with flying hair, cagey side glance, and my best don't mess with me smirk. And the more I meditated on it, the more the usurp word compounded in personal meanings. Not just kingdoms and crowns got usurped. A person's unique and untransferable self could at any time be diminished, annexed, or altogether extinguished by alien forces. My soon-to-be 22 years on this earth had been an obstacle course mined with potential or actual usurpers. Since day one, it seemed, I had been confronted by them in one form or another. After my alcoholic father crashed his car fatally into a tree on the day of my birth, Mother's Alabama cousin